I want to welcome everybody to our Mylio Photos coffee break. Today's topic is traveling with Mylio Photos, which honestly, I think is one of the superpowers of this application. The ability to access your photos on the go and to import them and get them starting to back up while you're traveling is really very impressive. I've just started dabbling with this particular capability, but JC's been doing this for a long time. So that's why I asked him to come be our guest host today and tell us a bit how he works with Mylio Photos while he's traveling. So in addition to being our customer success lead, he's also an underwater photographer. He's traveled to some amazing places, and he's got a great image library, and he's had experience working with his photos on boats with no internet and in different parts of the world where connectivity is really iffy. So I thought he would be a great person to come share with us. So welcome, JC.
Hello.
And before we jump into your topic, I have a very quick poll that I set up here, and it's just one question. So let me go ahead and launch that. And I would like to know a little bit about how long you've been using Mylio Photos, what your experience level is. So I'm going to give that a moment. Can you guys see that up on the screen? Awesome. Looks like we've got a couple of answers coming in. Perfect.
I guess I'm not supposed to.
Well, you're a host.
Oh,
so
I'm not allowed. Ah, man.
Well, it looks like we're pretty evenly split over people who've been using it for just under 30 days and people who've been using it for over a year. So
yeah.
I love seeing the range of experience here. So if you have your own tips, especially at the end when we have like open Q&A, feel free to share some of your tips that you've learned traveling and working with Mylio Photos. And if you see something in the chat where another user is asking a question that you know that answer, please don't hesitate to jump in and help people out. And I think that's a great thing for our community as well, that we have so many talented and knowledgeable people ready to share their information. So I'm going to go ahead and end that poll. And let's see, share the results there so you guys can see what we got. And I'll turn this floor over to JC.
Thank you.
All yours.
All right. So, yeah, traveling with Mylio, it's pretty fun. It really opens up your ability to manage and process your photos on the go, on the fly. There's two things that I always kind of concern myself, or that I'm highly sensitive and aware about when I'm traveling. And those two things are protecting the photos that I'm taking, right? Because especially if you're traveling to a unique destination, I've had the privilege of going to places like Galapagos and Fiji and other destinations, which often are a once in a lifetime opportunity. And the photos that you're taking there, you want to protect them. You want to have multiple copies of them. So that protection is one of the key elements that I think about when I'm traveling. And it's something that Mylio helps me accomplish pretty easily. The second one is metadata, actually, and capturing the right metadata. And for me, a lot of the metadata that I want to capture that the camera doesn't capture is specifically geotag data. One of the coolest things about Mylio, and I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here. One of the coolest things about Mylio is the ability to find photos based on where the photo was taken. And like, as I was saying, I've had the privilege of traveling to a lot of locations around the world. And I can just at a glance move this map around and be able to see where I've been, but also see where I haven't been. It's like, oh, I need to visit most of South America. That is not my picture. I've never been there. And I need to travel more to Asia and get a few more photos, which I'm going to do soon. I'm going over here to the Maldives pretty soon. That's a trip that I have coming up. I'm very excited about. But this map view works great when you're using a camera device, such as a smartphone, that captures GPS data as you go. I do have one Nikon camera that has a GPS unit integrated.
Stupid squirrel is on top of sitting on the.
There we go. Go ahead.
But even with that camera, you have to remember to turn the GPS unit on. You have to make sure that certain settings are correct. Otherwise, the GPS data is not captured. So gathering metadata as you go and protecting your photos are the two things that I try to do. One of them, well, both of them are really easy if you are using Mylio. So I'm going to show you a couple of tricks. Let's talk about metadata and capturing geotag photos first. I'm going to zoom over here to this area of the Galapagos where I had a trip just last year. And a lot of the photos that I take are underwater photos. So if I scroll down here, you'll see that a lot of these photos happen underwater where GPS data is not going to be captured. I cannot take my phone down there and expect GPS to work. There's no underwater cameras that capture GPS data. However, what I do is that before I get underwater, before I go on a dive, I often take a photo with my phone. This is a photo that I took on the boat right before I jumped in the water. And if I open the information panel on Mylio, you'll notice this photo was taken with the phone. And if I scroll down here to the places area of my information, I have coordinates. Now I know that for this particular dive we did on Fernandina Island, these are the coordinates. I can copy those coordinates. And then I can go to have Mylio show me in the calendar this photo. And I know that all the photos that I took around this time are going to have the same GPS data. So I can just select a whole bunch of photos. And notice I've already done this for all these photos. But I could just go and paste that metadata, those GPS coordinates into those photos. And that's how a photo such as this underwater starfish actually has a GPS location. Is because I took one photo with my phone, I captured the metadata that I wanted, and then I used Mylio to copy that metadata to the rest of my photos. And this works really well for a variety of things. You know, you can use it to correct dates. Like if you're taking photos with your camera and your camera time is set up wrong, your phone always has the correct date. Take a picture with your phone, use that date and time from your phone to correct all the date and times on your camera photos or GPS data or whatever the data might be. So that's trick number one when traveling with Mylio. Every once in a while, if you're using a camera, pull up your phone, take a photo with your phone, and you're capturing metadata as you go that you can use Mylio to correct metadata from your other source photos. So we took care of metadata. Now I want to protect my photos, right? And the best way to protect your photos when you're traveling is to have them copy the original version of your photos into multiple devices. And this is something that Mylio does pretty easily, but you might not want to travel with a laptop, and you might not want to travel with, obviously, if you have a big hard drive array at home, you're not going to travel with that big vault. Sometimes if one of your vaults is a cloud storage like Google Drive or Amazon Drive, you might not have access to those devices. So what I tend to do is I tend to use my mobile devices as temporary original repositories of my photos. And I have two scenarios for this. Today, I'm going to talk about one scenario, and then we'll have a part two of traveling with Mylio in the coming weeks or months. I don't know when Angela scheduled it. I think I trust her too much with my schedule. I should look at that more. I'm going to talk about part one today, which I call using an away folder. So an away folder works great when you have shorter trips or when you have portable devices that have enough storage to store all the photos that you expect to take on a trip. So if I'm doing a road trip, for example, and I'm going to be gone for 3 or 4 days, let's say I'm going to take a few thousand photos, both my iPad and my phone have enough storage in them that I could store all of my originals in those devices and have 3 copies of my photos. I have the copy on the memory card itself, right? So if I take a copy with a photo with a camera, I have those memory cards. The photos are there. I import the photos directly into my iPad, and the original is going to be stored there. And then I use this concept of an away folder to also have Mylio synchronize the photos from the iPad to the phone. Now, it doesn't matter what kind of connectivity I have back to home. When I'm using these two devices, I can set my phone to be a hotspot. The iPad is going to connect to it right away. And then Mylio will synchronize back and forth. So let me show you this away folder. If I go here into my Mylio pictures, I have a folder called away. And you'll notice that right now this folder is empty. We're looking at my computer right now. This folder is set to one originals on all of my devices. Notice that if I click here on the policy for this folder, is set to originals. Now, some of you might not have this option turned on Mylio, and I'll show you how to turn that option. Notice that for other devices, it's just set to preview. My computer, this is my laptop. My laptop as a general device quality setting is set up to just one previews. But certain folders like the away folder is specifically set to originals. And I can change that setting on that folder on a device by device basis. So if I share my iPad screen and I bring that window over, give me just a second here to share that device. So here's the screen for my iPad. And if I go into the same folder, let me make that a little bit bigger so you guys can see it better. If I go to that same folder, that away folder here on my iPad, you'll notice that there's that O for originals also set up on that device. The same is true of my phone. So any photo that I put in this folder, the iPad and the phone are going to hold on to the original version of that photo. And what I do is when I'm traveling, I just take my memory card. Here's my memory card. If you can see my camera still, I take a regular USB card reader, and I'm going to read these photos directly into my iPad. I'm going to transfer the photos from my camera directly into my iPad. So I just plug in that memory card. It comes up on Mylio right away. So now I can see that Mylio is saying, hey, you have some photos here in this source called Untitled. That's the name of the card because I haven't renamed it since I bought it. And it gives me the option of putting those photos in a destination. I'm going to change this destination to my away folder. And I'm doing all of this on my iPad right now. So everything you're seeing is me touching my iPad screen. So there's my away folder. I'm going to choose that as the destination. And notice also that I have exclude suspected duplicates turned on. Now I do that because I don't erase my memory card as I'm taking photos, but I don't want the same photo to be copied over and over. So on day one of my trip, I took 800 photos. I imported those into my iPad in Mylio. On day two, my camera memory card is still not full, so I'm going to import again from the same card, but it's only going to import the new photos because I have exclude suspected duplicates selected. So Mylio knows that photo 1 to 800 from yesterday are already part of the library. It's going to start saving photos 800 to 1600 or whatever the number might be. I still have all the advanced options on my iPad as far as settings. So I could go into advanced settings here and I could add keywords. If I'm on a dive trip, I could put the name of the dive site here. I could put the location, anything that's relevant to those photos that I'm working on. Remember, we talked about capturing metadata as you travel so that you don't have to rely on your memory to go back and really put all the pertinent information. I say this all the time. You guys are going to get, if you come to a lot of coffee breaks or if you've seen some of the webinars that I participate on, I'm always saying photos for me are stories. Every photo tells a story. And the more information that you can capture with that photo, the better that story becomes. So it's like I took a photo of a starfish, it's great. But if I tell you this photo was taken in Galapagos on this date, and this is the type of starfish as part of this species, blah, 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 blah. This is information that dive masters usually tell you. These are things that you can add to that metadata as you're importing the photos by using the advanced features here. You can even create subfolders within this away folder to do that. So enough talking. I'm going to go ahead and copy the photos now. And what Mylio is doing is adding all this new photos to that particular folder. And I'm sorry if you don't like spiders. I went around the house yesterday and took a bunch of spider photos because it's that time of year. So that's what's here. So those photos from this spider trip, my Spiderland trip, have now been imported, and they're now in the away folder. And now my iPad is holding the original version of those photos. My phone is holding the original versions of those photos because my phone is turned on and synchronizing. So here, if I switch to my computer and I go to my dashboard and show you my devices, you'll see that, oh, my phone is not turned on. Hello, phone. Now it is. You'll notice that my phone is going ahead and synchronizing those photos. If I were to look at that particular folder and open my sync panel, you'll see that both my iPad and my phone want the original version of these photos. So all 12 of those photos are saving to the phone. They're already on the iPad because that's where I imported them. And they're, of course, gonna get distributed to all my other devices. I'm at home now, so it's not as great a demo as if I was actually on the field. Next time we do this, Angela, I should be on a trip.
I think we need to have like a coffee break trip, and we can just do this all live. That'd be pretty cool.
I agree. That would be fun. So now, why put these photos in the away folder? Well, because once I get home, I can simply move those photos to their permanent location, and that storage space in my iPad and that storage space on my phone is going to be immediately freed up. So let's say that I got home, I'm no longer away, and I want to continue working on the photos that I took on that trip. Well, I'm going to go here to my trips folder. I'm going to create a new folder for that particular trip by using my actions menu, new folder. We'll call this Spiderland 2022. We create that folder. Now I'm going to navigate back to my away folder. I'm going to select all the photos and move them to that folder. So I'm here on my trips folder. There's Spiderland. Continue. The photos are no longer in my away folder. That folder is empty, which means that if I show you my iPad again, that folder on my iPad is empty. And because my iPad is set up to just one previews on Spiderland, a bunch of space has been freed up on my iPad. So that storage that I was using to hold those originals while I was on the trip is automatically freed up because I moved the photos from one folder to another, and there's a specific setting for each folder. Same with my phone. The photos are no longer on my phone. I only have the preview version, and the available space on my phone has been freed up again. But while I was traveling, I could have lost my phone. I could have lost my iPad. I could have lost my memory card, or even my camera, God forbid. And I would still have all the photos because I was importing into my iPad and distributing to my other devices as I went along. So really quickly, let me show you where this setting is for the folders. If you go to any particular device, right now I'm on my laptop, so I'll show you on that device. you have the option of turning on tap to sync. It's just a little switch. Once that button is turned on, you can go to any folder up or subfolder. Notice that my away folder is inside a top level folder, and you'll get that option. And then you can change the settings. You can even create a customized setting that says, okay, I want only originals that are 5 stars to live in this folder, or only originals that are labeled with a yellow tag, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, as the case might be. In this case, I want everything in the away folder to be original. So I hope that makes sense. This is how I work when I'm traveling. And the advantage of importing directly to the iPad is not just the convenience of having the photos on that device with a bigger screen. It's just so easy to work on it, right? Like if I'm in a tropical destination, the last thing I want to do is go to my room, plug in my laptop, and sit in front of a screen while I'm in this gorgeous environment. I want to grab the iPad and go sit on a hammock. And I have a bigger screen. I can tell right away whether a photo is in focus, whether I can recover detail either on highlights or on shadows on that photo. I can do all kinds of edits right there on the iPad. I can go to one of these spider photos and go, oh, right here on my iPad, I can go into edit and look at my histogram and see, okay, I have a lot of dark areas that are underexposed here. That's what the blue means. Can I recover that, or do I need to go take more spider photos? So these are the kind of things that I can do on Mylio pretty easily and not have to worry about whether I have to open that photo on a full editing application on a laptop. I can just do it right here on my iPad while I'm sitting on the hammock. And for someone like me who travels mostly for scuba diving, I'm already carrying a lot of gear, right? I'm carrying scuba gear, I'm carrying camera gear, I'm carrying housings for my cameras, I'm carrying strobes to use underwater. The last thing I want to do is take another heavy device like a laptop or a bunch of hard drives. So I can do it all with my iPad. So that's part one.
That was fantastic, JC. That's a lot of great information, and I think you explained it very clearly. We did have a couple of questions. You already addressed enabling tap to sync, and I put the link to the instructions for the manual in the chat as well. But George asked, when you bring the photos into your iPad, do you go direct to Mylio versus adding the photos to Apple Photos?
Yes, I go direct to Mylio, because if I add them to Apple Photos, then I'm duplicating the storage need in that device, right? Because Apple Photos has its own dedicated, this is how a lot of portable devices work nowadays. On a computer, you have full control of the file system, but on a mobile device, the file system is often hidden from you. And there's a storage allocation for Apple Photos, and there's a storage allocation for Mylio. If you import the photos into Apple Photos and you're telling Mylio to also have the originals there, well, you're not really duplicating, because Mylio is really smart. It's going to go, oh no, the original is on the Apple Photo space, I'm going to keep it. But I just skip that step because it's something else that I would have to manually clean up. If I import directly into Mylio, all I have to do is move it from one folder to another at any time. When I'm home, when I'm on the road, it doesn't matter. And then Mylio just intelligently goes, okay, the originals are saved in a couple of vaults. I can purge them from this space. If I import into Apple Photos, I will have to go and manually purge those photos from the Apple Photo space as well, or turn on the free up space on this device setting on Mylio and have Mylio do it. But that is not, that's still a manual step. You either run it by yourself or it runs on a schedule. So I just go directly into Mylio. And there's so many more advantages to doing it directly into Mylio, because I can then use all of the calling features of Mylio to kind of flag photos, add starts, correct metadata. Like I can start adding all the geotag data. Or one of my favorite things to do when I'm on trips is I meet a lot of people, right? So like the dive masters on the boat or the crew from the boat, I take photos with them. One of the first things I do is I go into face recognition and I tag the names of the people so that I can remember who I travel with. Let me turn these filters off and I'll show you. So I can go here to one of my trips. And if I go to that Galapagos trip that I was talking about earlier, as I go along and I meet people along the way, I can, because I took more pictures of things than people, I can just turn on face recognition and I know, okay, this was Chris, this was Kim. And I can do that right on Mylio. So why work twice? I go directly into Apple Photos. That was a long answer. I'll shut up now.
Oh, please don't shut up. So a funny comment, I'm not sure if you're keeping an eye on the chat, that Mark says he thinks you need an exterminator, not a camera. I thought that was great.
Well, you know what? It's funny that you say that. So the other day we had a spider service go around the house. And we know that they have to come a couple of times, but one of the reasons I went around the house and took photos of spiders, I think they're cool. I think they're made for great subjects, especially with a nice macro lens. But I was also joking with my wife. I went and took all those photos, came back in and said, I think you need to ask for your money back. But really, it's only been one treatment. It takes a couple.
Oh man. Harold wants to know, why isn't tap to sync on by default? And I think you can correct me if I'm wrong, JC. It's because there's a lot of complexity that can be made available inside Mylio Photos. There's certain settings we keep off just to keep the interface a little bit more clean, especially for people who are getting started, because all of those settings can get overwhelming. So some of those more advanced features are off by default. They can be easily turned on if you want to use them.
Yeah. So when you're setting your device quality, you're setting kind of a global setting for that device. And when you use tap to sync, those settings are overridden just for that folder. And if you look here at the very bottom of the screen below the reset device quality, you'll notice that there's 12 folders that are currently overriding your device policy. Mm-hmm. Now, I know what that means because I intentionally turned tap to sync and I went to specific folders and I set specific device quality for those folders. But for a new user to see that, that's going to create a lot of confusion. So we make it a setting that you intentionally have to turn on.
Let's see, Rob sent a message here about iPad OS 16 and an external attached SSD. That is something that we're working on. So what he's referring to there is, right now you can pull information off of an external drive if you plug it in, but you can't use it like you use an external drive on a computer. The new iPad OS is going to have that functionality available. And because Apple's making that available, we are working on enabling that as well for use with Mylio Photos. So that will likely be coming at some point in the future. I don't have a timeline that I can share quite yet, but it is something we're working on. So that'll be really cool.
If you have an Android device that can take a memory card, that is something that we do support today. So that's one way in which you can expand storage in those devices, but not so much with the Apple devices yet. But yeah, that's my dream, because then I can take a very small drive and make it a partial vault. And this is part of what we're going to talk about in the next session, is how to create a partial vault. Because it's easy enough for a device like the iPad, which has an interface, right? I can go into any folder here and change those settings. But what's really cool about Mylio is that I can change the settings for a specific folder on a hard drive. But I'm not going to tell you how till next time, because I want you to come back. No, actually, if you really want to know, just let me know. I can go ahead and demo that pretty quickly, but it is one of the cool features that I use where I can take, instead of taking a 5 terabyte hard drive with me, I can take a 1 terabyte hard drive, which is very small. Its SSD requires very little power, and I can create a partial vault, a vault where only certain folders are set to one originals, and I can set that up with Mylio. So if you guys want me to demo that, I will, but let's make sure we get through all the questions.
All right. Paul says, I take burst mode photos of flying birds, generating a lot of photos to delete. The problem is if I delete them, I'll get them back when I take more photos and import them into Mylio. Is there a way to selectively import photos from the SD card to Mylio? I would say not from the main import screen, but if you go into your memory card and select the photos. So let's say you imported photos, 100 through 500, you already did that. You can go to 501 through 1000 and manually drag those from the folder in Explorer or Finder into the folder in Mylio, and that will queue up the import for just those images. Now, as far as culling photos, burst photos, things like that, there are a couple of things that we're working on. We're working on a culling mode, so that'll make things easier. And we're going to be introducing a reject flag, which I'm very, very excited about. And what that'll enable you to do is to go through and start that culling process. You'll be able to add those reject flags to those photos that you want to delete, and then wait until you're home and you're ready to clear off that CF card or SD card, and then go ahead and delete those images out of your library. But when you use that reject, it'll enable you to hide them so you can still just see the ones you want to work on, but they're not actually deleted until you're home, everything's backed up, and then you can wipe your card. So that's something coming within the next year, probably sooner. And I'm very excited about that. I think it'll speed things up tremendously, especially for those burst shots. I know exactly what you're talking about because I did the same thing when I was on vacation. It wasn't birds. I just happened to have my camera on high-speed burst mode. So I get like 3 or 4 pictures of everything. I would delete a few of them and I go to do a re-import, and it would try to re-import those again because I deleted them. So I feel your pain and we're working on it.
So a couple of things. One is what Angela was talking about. Here's a demonstration of it. So on the left, I have my away folder. I'm in that folder in Mylio. And over here, I have on the Finder, just a folder with some photos and videos. I can select just a few of these and drag them directly into that folder. That invokes Mylio's import command. It goes into copy mode right away. And if I copy those, it's only going to copy the 3 that were selected, not everything else. So that's one of the things that Angela was talking about. The other thing that I do when I'm working with photos and rejections is, and this is what the reject flag is going to do, but I already do it. I have a workaround that I do it with. So if I go back to Spiderland here, let's say that I only wanted to keep a few of these photos. I just use a red label for the photos that I don't want. And what I do is that every once in a while, I go into Mylio, I set up a filter and I say, show me all my red labels. And I'm afraid of what might come up here. Okay, nothing bad. But these are all photos that I said, I don't need this in my Mylio library. But instead of going through them and delete them, I just use red as my reject flag. Very soon, you're going to have an actual reject flag. But then I can delete them all at once. Maybe once I'm home, or maybe once the trip is over, or maybe once that memory card is full and I know I'm not going to be taking any more photos with that memory card, I go ahead and delete them then. So.
Well, and conversely, if you want to hide all of the red ones, you can do that from the filter as well.
Yeah.
And uncheck the red and check every other one and the unflagged and show everything that doesn't have a flag. So you can kind of hide all the ones that you're planning to delete as well. That's another good workaround.
Yep. All right. What other questions do we have?
Let's see. George asked if I could repeat the changes that are coming to iOS and Mylio. So Currently, the way it works on iPads is you can plug in a USB-C drive and you can access the data on that drive, but you can't use it as an external drive in the same way that you do on a computer. The change that's coming is going to enable it so you can use an external drive on an iPad like you do an external drive on a computer. So you can set it up as a vault and really go travel without having to have a laptop and have a more traditional file system workability. That's something that you can do on an iPad that's not coming to iPhones. And the reason for that is that iPhones they don't have enough power. So that lightning adapter.
It's the lightning connector, yeah.
Yeah, the lightning connector doesn't put off enough power to power an external drive, but USB-C does. So that's why iPads are capable. Unfortunately, iPhones are not, but that's something coming. And as soon as that's available, we're going to do our best to get support for that enabled from Mylio Photos.
It's something that both myself and the founder of the company want, so it's going to happen. Not so much because of me. They don't care what I want, but they care what the founder wants.
Definitely. Mark says he has a complicated question about hotspot and can he unmute? Absolutely, Mark, go for it.
Hi, JC. I have never clearly understood how Mylio works when you're in an online environment. Apparently, there's a proxy that goes back to the mothership that knows where my other devices are. And I don't need to know more detail than that, but there's some kind of proxy service going on in the background that it might not be moving the pictures across it, but it's certainly moving the addresses of the devices across it. What I'm unclear on is when you're remote and you don't have any internet at all,
Right.
Does the hotspot mode get you out of that predicament? Because I've tried to use it unsuccessfully and I figured I probably just did it wrong.
So this is a complex question. You're absolutely right. I'm going to try to give the answer a little bit of credit, but I might not get it right. And I know from previous coffee breaks that you have a background in programming, so you're going to understand this better than me. It used to be that you could just travel with your own hotspot. I have one.
Me too. I even have a cellular router now.
Something like this, right?
Yes.
And I would just set up a network and my devices would just see each other. And even if I didn't have an internet connection, they would connect. Both. The reason we could do that was because Apple would allow it. Yeah. And on the Windows side, we actually, because we have a close relationship with Microsoft, they grandfather a special setting for us that would allow us to do that. In the newer OSs, some of those features have been removed. So we kind of have to go back and backwards engineer some of this stuff to try to allow for that connectivity. Also, this is a new TP-Link. And the last time I traveled, I set it up at home when I had an internet connection. It worked great. As soon as I got on the boat, I went to set it up and it wanted an internet connection before it would let me create the network. So it's more about the ability to create that network.
Yeah.
And for the devices to have IP addresses that Mylio can use to clearly identify and create that peer-to-peer connection. If you can create the network, Mylio will work. It's more about creating that network and what the different OSs will let you do. Like the iPhone used to let you create a hotspot even if it didn't have an internet connection. Now it doesn't.
There's some security issues with it. That's why they're all stopping it.
Right.
The last time I went to Dominican Republic, I actually took a cellular router with me that I bought from Verizon.
Right.
And as long as I can get cellular anywhere, I don't need to use a cellular. I just need to have the router capability.
Exactly. Yeah.
So that gets around it. But I was curious how that hotspot thing works because I've had a lot of grief with it. And
yeah, the hotspot feature in the app is something that we're either going to remove or we're going to fix it, whichever one is more feasible.
So the cellular router was really the right way to go then.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, that was the way
All
to
right,
go.
thank you. I appreciate
what
it.
I ended up doing on the boat is I begged the captain to let me get on the boat's Wi-Fi with my two devices, and I promised that I wasn't going to use any bandwidth, and then my devices could see each other.
Exactly.
But you might run into this issue even on certain hotels. Like you might go to a hotel and you have both your computer and your phone connected to their Wi-Fi, but they cannot see each other because they're blocking certain traffic. So unfortunately, we're often at the mercy of those networks. And about travel, one of the things that I didn't say, and I guess I should have, is when I travel, I leave one of my computers at home turned on. I turn the monitors off, but I change the sleep settings on the computer. I have a little remote app on my phone that I can use to kind of make sure my computer is awake remotely. But that way, if I have a good internet connection, if I happen to be in a place where I have a decent internet connection, I just turn my iPad on and I plug it in and I let it run overnight. And my photos often get home before I do.
Yeah.
So
I've done the same thing. And for those that don't have an app like that, because eventually those apps are going to get shut down as well, as you know, for very obvious reasons.
Yeah.
For those that don't have that, I don't know about Windows computers because I haven't run one in like 15 years, but all Macs have wake on LAN capability.
Yeah.
So that's all you need is if it tries to get to the device, it will wake up. And if you just keep your monitors shut off, just don't put the sleep mode on. The sleep mode will kill you, especially if you sleep the hard disks. So
no, it works pretty well.
Yeah, it does.
Well, are there any other questions? I don't see anything in the chat, but if I missed something, please feel free to unmute and ask your questions.
Yeah, so you're telling me that if I keep my desktop at home on and Mylio on, and I'm on the road with my laptop, and I have an internet connection, the photos will sync on the road?
Uh-huh.
Wow,
Yep.
I didn't realize that.
Now, the caveat here is that the network that you're on has to allow for that traffic, right? There's been certain hotels, like I've been to like really cheap hotels where their Wi-Fi setup let me do whatever I wanted. And I've been to a Four Seasons where their Wi-Fi sucked and it was really restricted and I couldn't send my photos home. So a lot of it depends on the network that you're on. You can also use obviously cellular data to send your photos back home. Just be cognizant that if you're using cellular data and you're in a different country and you're roaming, you might incur a lot of charges. So you can turn cellular data off for Mylio on your portable devices. That's something that you might want to consider if you're in a remote area and you're using roaming, because Mylio will start sending in photos home using your cell data. It'll warn you on the screen that it's using cell data, but you know.
Yeah, I know when I travel, I use a firewall when I'm in hotels, but that should still work.
Yes.
With a VPN.
Yeah. If you use a VPN, you might be able to get away.
Yeah, firewalls control inbound traffic, not outbound. VPNs are the other direction.
Right.
One thing I want to add to the cellular thing, I happen to be a Verizon user, but I believe all the major carriers have this. You can buy what's called a cellular router. And with Verizon, you only, my Verizon plan is an unlimited plan because I do a lot of data transfers when I'm remote. But once you have an unlimited plan, you can add a 5G network with a SIM card into their cellular router for only $25 a month. And if you're traveling to places where they've got lousy communications, like Dominican Republic, I'd rather know I have them somewhere else than not, even though I save them to an external SSD also. It's just $25 is cheap for that. So I do it just to make sure I've got them because, you know, like the picture that's behind me, pictures like that, you don't get many opportunities to shoot that. So
yeah. I also use cloud in a similar manner. So I have Amazon Cloud set up and I don't want to try to upload all of my originals to Amazon. So my Amazon Drive setup is actually set up to just want previews. And to me, that's like a real disaster recovery scenario. Like if I took a bunch of photos and I lost the originals, but I still have Mylio Smart Previews, I still have a decent photo. It's a JPEG. I'm not going to be able to edit it as much. But if it's just, the photos that are usually the most important are the ones that have some sentimental value. Those are going to, as long as I can see Amazon, my previews go up there. And then at that point, I have something, right? I have like that person that I met or that sunset that I enjoy with my wife.
A really good point.
Is there a way to set up Dropbox as a vault?
No, we don't support Dropbox presently. We used to support Dropbox, but the API, the application interface protocol for Dropbox, basically the set of instructions that they give a third party to allow to make connections to it is very limited. And because we can control certain things, some customers get into scenarios where there was contention between how Dropbox was trying to synchronize things and how Mylio was trying to synchronize things, and that led to data loss. So we stopped supporting it because we're in the business of keeping your data, not losing your data. We're constantly looking at what they let us do with their API. If at some point they make it so that we can create our little black box and encrypt files like we do for everybody else, then we'll start supporting that again. But we're looking at a lot of cloud providers, and that's something that's pretty high up in the roadmap, is supporting more cloud services. So I don't know that Dropbox will be one of them because of the limitations, but services like Backblaze or other AWS-based services are probably going to start being supported soon. So you'll have a lot more options.
One thing you can do if you already have a Dropbox account is you'll probably need help from someone at a computer store or something to do this, but you can create what's called a symlink that points at your Mylio Photos folder, and that will push it over to Dropbox, and you won't have the contention problem that we're talking about. Now, what you have to be careful of is if you create that symlink, you're getting into kind of a situation that people have with Lightroom. Don't touch that Dropbox folders photos or you will break things. Just use it as a backup device in case you need it. But be careful because you can break your catalog that way, and then you got to do a recovery mechanism.
Yeah.
Symlink like an alias.
Oh, you know what they are exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a folder. It's a folder alias rather than a file alias. So what you do is you tell Dropbox that this folder is part of Dropbox, whether it is or is not. I learned about this because Dropbox doesn't allow you to link external drives. Well, they can't really stop it with good symlinks.
No, actually, my Dropbox is an external drive on the symlink.
There you go. Yeah, so you know about it then. You can do the same thing then.
Yeah, so you can do it outside Mylio, but just like Mark said,
yeah,
be
careful.
Cognizant of what you do in Mylio and in Dropbox, because there's a connection that Mylio has no control of. So if files start disappearing, Mylio is going to go, oh, he deleted this file in the file system. He must want to delete it everywhere. Boom.
Now the good news is Mylio will warn you. And if you want out of the predicament, it'll grab it from one of your vaults. So you do have a backup plan, but you got to be careful. Don't just be clicking OKs on things.
Yeah. Rob,
Very
you have a
helpful.
question.
Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. You can go ahead and unmute Rob if you like.
Can you hear me right now?
I can.
Yeah, I'm in my car. I'm in Asheville, and so I didn't want to have video on. First of all, I appreciate all the education, Angela, that you and the rest of you do. This is fantastic. I just mentioned that my wife and I went to California for 28 days, and I left my iMac on the 24-inch with a 2 terabyte original drive and 2 terabyte a second vault. And I was able to back up many photos, not only from my iPhone, but also from my Leica camera, which has pretty big files. So it worked out really, really well. And I have to go, but thank you. I'm getting another call. Sorry.
You're welcome. Have a good day and drive safe.
Yeah, Rob mentioned earlier that he uses blue labels for original images and green for original videos. I use colors in many different ways. Like oftentimes when I'm on my iPad and I take a photo underwater and I do some light editing with Mylio, sometimes that's all I need. Like I'm kind of lazy, so I don't like to do a lot of editing. I try to capture the photo as well as I can on camera so that I don't have to do a lot of editing. So oftentimes what I can do in Mylio is plenty, but there's some photos where I'm like, I could do more if I put it in Lightroom or something else. And in those cases, I label those photos yellow. And then when I get home or when I have access to my computer, I just filter by all my yellow photos and I throw those into Lightroom. And every time I have time, I go through them and edit them, and there you go.
Nice. All right. Any other questions before we wrap up for today? All right. Well, thank you guys so much for joining us today. I hope you enjoyed it. Lots of great information. Thank you, JC, for sharing your expertise
Absolutely.
on travel. I know everybody's looking forward to part 2. We'll get that on the calendar, and I promise I'll tell you when it is. I won't spring it on you. So have a good weekend, everyone, and we'll see you next time.